Hello there and welcome to the final Scott and Becca lockdown video.
Yeah.
We are talking about Blackpool Pleasure Beach's heritage today. Is it a help or is it a hindrance? Now, the reason we're talking about this one is mainly because of comments on recent videos about the Pleasure Beach in terms of, it was mostly on the RMC video, on the RMC conversions, where a lot of people said, do not touch the woodies, they're classics, they're part of Pleasure Beach, they need to last forever. And then a lot of other people were saying, get rid of them, they're holding Pleasure Beach back, they're a hindrance on the park's future. And then when you read through Facebook, there's a lot of comments that swing both ways as well. So
yeah, it's pretty divided, really.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. I think it is literally down the middle with what people want. Do people want Pleasure Beach to be modern and sort of move away from being a bit of a heritage park with all the old woodies, some of the classic rides like Derby Racer, Flying Machines, or do people want Pleasure Beach to stay as it is? Now, I'm going to get your words in now, because I know that you've been thinking about this one all week. So, the heritage of Pleasure Beach, help, hindrance, bit of the both. What do you think?
I think it's a bit of both, but I think the biggest problem is they don't necessarily use it in the best way.
Yeah.
For example, you have rides making massive milestones. 80-year-old
Grand National.
Grand National. It's something to shout about, something to be proud of. Look at this ride that we've looked after for 80 years and is still thrilling people. People are still queuing for this ride. Why are they not shouting about it? They seem to go with the idea of, yes, we love our wooden rides. They obviously look after them very well. I mean, they wouldn't be open if they weren't. And
Absolutely
they do put
not.
in a lot of work. They've kept the trains looking good and everything. So they do put in a lot of work. They just don't shout about it. And I feel like they should, make more of a stance to people that come and ride are really brilliant rides from the 30s. They're so old and they should be proud of that. They've got a good mix of new and old, and they either need to run with, look, we've got a great mix. You can ride something that opened 2 years ago and something that was built 80 years ago.
Can't quit that 2 years, hasn't it?
It has. Or they should just go, right, we're not interested in our old rides. We just need to move on and start replacing them.
Yeah, it's an interesting way.
You've got to have the balance of, what are we shouting about? You can't just forget about them.
Yeah, because I think one example I'm thinking of as you're talking now is Big Dipper, 2013. I believe it was 2013. It had its, was it 90th? I think it's 1923 Big Dipper opened. Yeah, so it had its 90th celebrations, and there was a big party for it.
Yeah.
Now you had to book to do the party, and it wasn't particularly busy. But what they did do was excellent, because they had a big birthday cake for Big Dipper. They had all like vintage videos of Big Dipper.
Yeah.
They had vintage merchandise that you could buy. That was excellent. I've still got the t-shirt. I just need to stop being so fat, then I could wear it. But it was a great night. But we're into the 80th year of the Grand National now. Obviously, the park's shut. It's not their fault. But there was going to be no event for the Grand National's 80th.
And the same for the big one.
Last year.
That might not be as old, but it's still worth shouting about.
It has been the UK's tallest roller coaster for 26 years. But last year, 25, big milestone. And there wasn't much about it. But yeah, I can see where you're coming from, that the heritage is there and they're all proud of it. They wouldn't have those rides if they weren't. But there is not as much made of it as, say, other parks who have rides as old. As an example, Kennywood would have been celebrating this year Jack Rabbit's anniversary. I honestly couldn't tell you exactly how old that ride is off the top of my head, but it is the similar age of like Big Dipper.
Yeah.
It's still got very vintage trains on it, and it's been all over socials. It's this anniversary for this coaster. So yeah, it's an interesting point to start with. Does the Pleasure Beach make the most of that wonderful heritage that they've got?
I mean, one thing to think about is your average 14, 15-year-old walks into the park and they see something like the Grand National and they must honestly think, that must be about 10 years old.
Because there's nothing...
Because younger people especially find it hard to grasp how old things are because they've not been around for that long.
Yeah, exactly.
So they think, oh, that was probably around when I was a baby, but they don't realise it was also around when their parents were children. And when their parents were children.
Yeah, exactly.
So shouting about kind of, this is the ride your great grandparents would have been on.
Yeah. Like, I think an example there in that logic would be Infusion, because you look at Infusion now, no matter what anyone thinks about an Infusion, it looks good.
It does.
It's well presented. It fits into that area perfectly. Now, if you'd never been to Pleasure Beach and you knew nothing about Blackpool, you would assume straight away that's one of the new rides.
Yeah.
It looks good. It looks modern. Especially next to Big Dipper, and even next to the big one, it looks more modern. And you would look at it and go, like, with the logic you're saying of, like, a first-time visitor who's, say, 15, who doesn't know anything about the park, it would look like one of the newer rides. But they wouldn't know it had been open since 99. Obviously, it's not been at Pleasure Beach for that long, but it is an interesting point. Interested to hear what you think, or see what you think in the comments section below. But moving on to sort of the same subject, but a different subject in the same thing, is does the actual heritage of the park hold it back from being up there with Towers as the most popular park in the country? Because no matter what me and you think about Towers, there is no doubt that it is more popular than Pleasure Beach at this point.
But they do have a hell of a lot more money to pile into advertising.
Absolutely.
For example, I was up visiting my mum in Scotland not long before it opened, and every ad break on the telly, you had the Wicker Man.
Yeah.
But you see nothing about Pleasure Beach.
No.
You know, you see quite a lot about Towers up there, and I think while Pleasure Beach obviously does do a fair amount of advertising, they don't have the budget to do it as widely as Towers, and I think they do miss a bit of the wider range that they should be shouting to, because they do advertise fairly locally.
Yeah, a lot of it in Blackpool and Lancashire.
Yeah.
And I think if you're from, like, there's a lot of advertising at the Trafford Centre, which I can understand because people from all over the north go to it, but I know this might sound daft if you were a Blackpool local, but I've never got the logic in advertising Pleasure Beach in Blackpool.
I'm sorry, but if you've already driven down Eden Way, you've seen the big one before you see the big advertisements in the car
And if
park.
you live in Blackpool,
you know
what's there. You know you've got the Pleasure Beach on your doorstep.
In these days where we have the internet, before you go somewhere, fairly often you're going to Google it.
Well,
and you're going to see, oh, look, Blackpool Pleasure Beach is there.
Yeah, as an example, we've been sat YouTubing videos of parks we're visiting next summer already, because we're like, oh, what's there? What can we do for catering? What's there other than the coasters? What do they do that's different to other parks? As we discovered with a park last night, they offer free soft drinks all year round. We wouldn't have known that if we hadn't watched that video. So you don't always need big billboard advertising in this day and age, especially not in the same town where you've got, like, the tallest coaster in the country, which you can see from just about everywhere.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think going back to it, you go back to the comments on the RMC video that we did last week especially, or 2 weeks ago. I will put a card in the top of the screen. Please watch it if you haven't. There's a lot of comments on that. There's nearly 500 comments, and it is a massive split where people are saying, do not touch the wooden coasters. Why though? Do they not need to be modernised? They have been modernised over time in the past. You look at examples, the Grand Nationals had new trains. Whether we like that or not, that was modernisation. It had new brakes put in the station. The Big Dipper had slight modifications after its incident in 2009. Nickelodeon Streak used to be roller coaster. That's had massive modifications. It's orange.
Yeah, don't remind me.
Different trains than what it had 15 years ago.
Yeah.
So they have all been modernised in the past, but there is a lot of comments now that they're getting too rough and they're getting uncomfortable and they're not enjoyable. Now, to a point, I agree with some of it.
I only agree with that where it comes to the Nash.
Oh, I agree with the National.
Yeah. But I really disagree when it comes to Big Dipper. For as long as I can remember, you can ride Big Dipper 5 times in a day and get a different ride out of it.
Yes.
So that's just, it's inconsistent anyway, but that's how a wooden coaster should be.
Yeah.
That's its personality. It does what it wants to do at that time. Depends on the heat, the moisture, you know.
Well, an example would be opening weekend this year when we had Storm Dennis leading up to it. Now, I know that the Pleasure Beach engineers had been out and greased up all the rails on the woodies because I stood watching them do it before they were getting tested a couple of weeks later. I saw pretty much all of the closed season build up towards the new season, and I know how hard Pleasure Beach worked on all of the woodies, especially over winter. And then you get to opening weekend, Storm Dennis has happened, and it's blown all that grease off the rails, and the Grand National is squealing on every corner, and you only have to hear people's comments, oh, this ride's past its sell-by date, it's squealing, it sounds awful, and it's not Pleasure Beach's fault, that. But yeah, going back to the point, I think Big Dipper is not as rough as a Grand National. Absolutely not. The first drop is a bit bumpy, especially in the back. But at the front...
It's just part of Big Dipper, though.
Yeah, I can't remember a time where it hasn't been bumpy on that first drop.
No, it's just... It's getting you ready for the rest of it.
Yeah, it is.
It's a good wake-up call after you've fallen asleep on the lift hill.
Yeah, although there is lots of good things to see.
There is, but
yeah,
still.
I know where you're going with that, yeah. But I think Grand National is the one. I think that's good.
Yeah.
Something's got to change.
I think the biggest problem with the Grand National is people can't see it.
Yeah.
And so people don't... It's a bit different. If it's your first time going on it, you see the station, you think, alright, what's this? And you can also see from across from Alice, you've got the glass and everything you can look through. But you can't get a sense of how big the ride is, how compact the ride is. So when you get to the top of the lift and you see all this sprawled out mess of track, it's a lot to take in at once because it is rough. It has got a lot rougher in the last few years. So you get hit with that, you get hit with something you've not seen yet.
Yeah.
And uncomfortable trains. Because I do think those trains are really uncomfortable.
The trains are horrible. And I don't think there's a lot you can do with them. I was reading comments from an old Club Pleasure Beach member, Peter, if he's watching, has commented to just about everyone on the RMC video that we did 2 weeks ago who mentioned the Grand National's trains, and he was explaining full details about those trains, and it's really interesting because he explains how they're different to like Megaphobia's trains, but they're not, because they're the same kind of trains, but they were custom designed for the Grand National.
Yeah.
So it makes you wonder straight away, was that always going to be a problem? Because if they've had to modernise what they're good at to make it fit a particular ride, it doesn't always go so well, does it?
Yeah. But I think, as well, with the Grand National, you queue up in the thinnest little...
Yes. We could not do this in the Grand National.
No, you couldn't be stood side by side. So you squeeze through the queue line. You then, in gates that don't really always line up, you've got to wait so long, even if it's walk-on, to get onto the train because you've got the ridiculous braking system through, all the hissing. You go through that, then you get in the train. Then if it's on 4, you've got to wait for ages once you're already in the train for that other train to come back and be unloaded.
Yeah.
You then go. You then get to the lift hill. And then you're like, oh, there's different things to see. Where is this going? Oh, this train's a bit uncomfortable.
Yeah,
and then you get to the top and you see it. And then just by the time you've got to the top of the lift hill, there's a lot to take in. And then you've got people who haven't got a clue how a Mobius loop works, thinking, how did we get on the other side?
That is part of the fun, though.
It is.
You can't deny that when you get back to the brakes and people go, oh, I got on that side. What's happened? That I love that. I've always loved that about the Grand National.
It's a lot for people to take in, especially people who just can't fathom what's going on. It is a lot for them to take in. And I think that's why a lot of people focus on that ride. Because it is a bit of an overload compared to the others.
I think as well, with like the National, there's no denying that probably still has the best airtime. But the trains restrict that airtime so much because you are so crammed in. And I think when you go down that first drop, and you get the lift on the double drop, and then you get the lift again at the bottom of that drop, people at that point are thinking, oh, bloody hell, I've been rattled around on the first drop, what's the rest of it going to be like? Going back to the point of heritage, help or hindrance, I think the Grand National's a big case of it because it needs something, but a lot of people who love it would argue that it needs nothing, but a lot of people who want to see Pleasure Beach progress would argue it needs something. So where do you draw the line? Who do you disappoint? Who do you please? Because it wouldn't be Pleasure Beach without that heritage. If you got rid of all the woodies, it wouldn't be Pleasure Beach anymore.
See, this is a big problem I find with people who go in there, remove all the woodies. All of them at once.
Yeah.
No, we have to look at this as a ride by ride.
Yeah.
It's not a case of, oh, I don't like wooden roller coasters, let's remove them all. One, they can't afford to even rip them all down at once. The cost and that would be ridiculous.
Big job, isn't it?
Never mind replacing them and all the groundwork.
Yeah.
I just wish people would think about it a little bit more before they start shouting.
I think one of the things that we covered well in the RMC video is that you can't just convert those coasters either. One, you've got the space issue. I'm not going to go around it all again because we've discussed it in that video. You've got the space issue, you've got the material issue, and you've got the ground issue. It's built on sand.
Yeah.
It's like Big Dipper is effectively still on the beach. It's just that they've concreted over the beach.
Yeah.
You think about how far they had to dig down for the big one. Like 40 foot into the ground for some of the footers. They'd probably have to do the same with Dipper to get an RMC in that space.
Yeah.
But where you put in the supports, where you put in the access routes, how are the maintenance teams getting to the other rides? That's the issue with modernising these coasters, because they're in such tight spaces. I don't know if you remember when Icon got built, but a couple of people who work at Pleasure Beach and have worked there for 30 odd years were saying to us, we can't physically put any more rides in this area without moving something now, because there's no access. And it was a challenge to put Icon in for that reason, for access. And then you think about if they have to retrack more of the big one, again, access. If they have to do the bit behind the Big Blue, we've looked at this on Google Maps loads, haven't we, going, well, if that's the next bit that they do, how are they getting a crane in that area? So there's that as well. It's you can talk about modernising a ride, but you've got to look at the whole logistical side of it as well. Money, space, other issues, how are they doing it, time scale. We've got a global pandemic, which is probably going to set parks back 10 years.
I mean, if you think about it, if you were going to modernise the Big Dipper, that's Icon closed, Infusion closed, you've got Steeplechase closed, you potentially have to close the big ones at times while
Pleasure
you're
Beach
actually...
Express.
Pleasure Beach Express would be definitely closed.
Yeah.
That's 6 rides including the Dipper itself.
Yeah.
Just,
so
the upheaval it would cause.
So then you've got that mindset, so then they have to do it in the closed season. Now we know how short the closed season is. You get November to February, you get horrendous weather, you've got other challenges that need faced,
Christmas
holidays, wow weekends start.
Yep.
So then what do? You just leave it as it is and open all the surrounding rides and hope that everything goes to plan. It is a massive job, and I'm sure that people from Pleasure Beach will watch this and go, well, we could do it, and I'm sure they can do it because they're extremely talented in what they do. The fact that the rides are 70, 80, 90, 100 years old in some cases just shows how amazing generation from generation at Pleasure Beach have been, in terms of the people who started with those woodies, passed on their wisdom, and that wisdom has got to the current generation of excellent engineers who have kept those rides running for us. And this video is not about criticising the rides that are there, it's just more, do them rides, hold them back at times.
One thing to think about is one thing that's brought up a lot from people, especially older Pleasure Beach fans, is they shouldn't have removed the reel, we want the reel back, please build another reel. Right, would it not be the same if we started removing the Grand National,
Wild
the Big
Mouse.
Dipper? Yeah, exactly.
Wild Mouse.
People call for these things to be removed, and then so many people whinge when they are removed. They can't win either way with this.
A classic case in the UK, and this is going away from Pleasure Beach, is Corkscrew.
Yeah.
Everybody hated the Corkscrew when it was open. It's rough. Get rid of it. Build a B&M there. Build an Intim in there. Do this, do that. Oh, we're removing Corkscrew. Oh no, it's going. What are we going to do? The Corkscrew's gone. That is exactly what will happen when one of the Pleasure Beach woodies goes. It'll be RMC the Grand National, RMC the Grand National. We're removing the Grand National, guys. We're putting in a modern steel coaster costing 20 million. You're a rubbish park. You don't care about your heritage. Get rid of it. Get rid of the owners. That is what it'll be, and that is what it always is.
Although going on removing the Grand National, I do believe that is the only sensible one they could remove.
Yeah,
because
space.
It opens up 2 lots of space, if you think about it. Because first of all, if you take away the station section, that opens up that whole strip where they've also removed
Trauma Towers.
Trauma Towers. That gives them that huge bit of land to now work with, and they could put something there. You then take whatever's replacing the Grand National itself, you take the station back towards where the lift hill is, and you can still use that back end.
Yeah.
But you're not restricted by starting over, going under. You know, they could really rework that little area of the park.
Yeah.
And really use the space at its full potential like that.
Yeah, definitely. So, it is, I know what's going to get brought up here, Grade 2 listing. But we have mentioned that in the RMC video that does stop them being changed too much. But I'm pretty sure how that listing works is that if they fall beyond repair, Pleasure Beach can apply to get rid of them. Because don't think it's like one of those situations where it has to fall down itself.
No, if it goes beyond repair or isn't economical to repair, it works a lot like cars. If you bump your car and it's going to cost more than the car's worth, or more of a percentage than the car's worth to put back on the road, they're not going to bother.
No. And I think that's how the grade 2 listing works with, and I don't think all the Woodies are listed. Don't worry, but Nickelodeon Street's not listed. But
but there's a technicality if something that's listed touches that other construction, then they can't touch that construction either.
Yeah, and also, what are they replacing that with?
Exactly. That's the thing with removing a lot of these things, bar the Grand National, because I think there's so much they could do with that area of the park, especially if they also took out Ice Blast. You could fully take out Grand National.
Can't we just get rid of Valhalla?
I won't. And take out Noah's Ark. Think of how brilliant an entry to the park you could have, and a few new rides as well. Just completely wipe off everything that's in that area of the park.
All I'm going to say is, Doug, don't worry, Becca has not bought the Pleasure Beach. Don't panic. But I know what you're saying, and I actually get where you're coming from.
I understand they don't have the money to do this. It's just purely in a fantasy world. I would take out the Grand National, I would take out Noah's Ark, I'd take out Ice Blast, probably take down Loki's, and completely redo that whole, and the
globe.
The globe. You see how much space they've got there that is actually...
I don't buy this argument that Pleasure Beach have got no space.
Oh, absolutely not. There's still tons they could do.
I've seen this commented in quite a lot of videos where we discuss the future of the Pleasure Beach, and I've seen there's no space. They need to RMC the big one, RMC the Grand National, RMC the Big Dipper, RMC Gallopers. But on a serious note, there is space.
There's plenty of space.
They made space for Icon.
Yeah.
I mean, I know rides got removed. I know if we're going back all the way, Spin Doctor, what was it called? Swamp Buggies, the bridge. They all went, and they are effectively what Icon replaced. Yeah. But we got a better deal with Icon because they used that space brilliantly. And when we were all looking at it in 2016 going, what are they going to do here? And then the things got leaked about Icon. You're looking at it going, are they actually going to get all of this in? Where are they putting the footers? How are they getting this back through the big one? And they are the masters of squeezing rides in. They really are. I mean, who would have thought Infusion would have fit where the lock flume was?
Yeah.
I mean, I remember at the time everyone was going, oh, it's going to go over the Tom Sawyer Bridge, it's going to go this way, it's going to go there. And none of us believed that it would fit in that space until it was there, and we were like, oh, okay, fair enough, you've done it, you've managed to get it in that space. And then when you stand at the top of the big one and see how they've got it in there, and you go, that is really impressive how they've done that. But again, it goes from generation. They're the masters at getting things in their park and looking after what they've got as well.
Yeah.
And by talking about stuff like the Grand National being rough, it's not a dig at anyone, it's just...
That's just how it's got.
It's just the way that Woodies go, isn't it? They do get rougher over time. And I think that a lot of the budgets at Pleasure Beach have been poured into like Icon and retracking the big one and doing other work that needed done first. I'm sure the Woodies will get the attention they need.
The fact is, it runs and it runs safely.
Exactly,
it passes its tests every year and it is allowed to open.
Yeah.
So, yes, it might be a bit uncomfortable, especially for some of us more than others. Other people still enjoy it, people still ride it, so it still deserves its place there.
Yeah, and I think, I dare say, if we put an ERT on sale for the Grand National, the Big Dipper, we would fill 2 trains at least every time.
That sells out so quickly.
Big Dipper always we fill 2 trains.
Yeah.
And Grand National, I reckon we probably would have filled the 4 trains because we were actually supposed to have an ERT on it this weekend, but of course, COVID.
Yeah.
But I would imagine that we would have filled it.
Yeah.
Because it's still a very, very popular coaster overall. It just needs a bit of modernisation, in my opinion. But it's not all about the Woodies, because when you think about everything else, Steeplechase is not exactly new, is it?
No.
And I think for me, that is the next thing that goes, in my opinion. I have said that so many times, and I don't think that there will be a big outcry if that went. I really don't.
See, I feel like that might be up for it sooner. But I'd rather, and I think it makes more sense, to get rid of Avalanche next. I know I've been calling for that for years.
You've been saying this for the whole time I've known you, since 2009.
It's a massive waste of space. And purely because the track type and the ride type doesn't make use of the space that it is on. Think about a massive modern Woody on that footprint that it's on. All that land in that big rectangle.
I don't know. Where are you putting the supports?
There's not that much under Avalanche. And even if you had to get rid of the bloody Grand Prix, so be it.
Hey, less of the removing arrow rides, please. Can we not just have a modern Woody where the bowlerdrome is?
Oh, we
all
could.
Along there.
We could. I'm meaning after we've filled these spaces.
Oh, right,
That
okay.
is when we go to removing something else.
Is this when we're dead? Because by the time all this has been done, we're gone.
Pretty much. I mean, and for Charlie's sake,
Yeah.
at some point they're going to have to get rid of Avalanche.
Oh, I'm sure they will do.
But it just, when you look at it from all different angles, from above, from the sides, there is a lot of wasted space around that area. It feels like they could do better than Avalanche with that.
Now, if there was ever a place for an RMC in the Pleasure Beach, it's an RMC Raptor instead of Steeple or Avalanche.
That is more what I had in my mind, but I would like to see more modern Woodies. But an RMC Raptor would go there, and they do look... I'm still 50-50 on whether they look fun or painful.
Yeah.
Because I can't make up my mind on those trains.
I guess you'll find out in April.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, I think that covers it.
Yeah.
I don't think we can beat this drum much more than we already have, but we would love to see your comments in the comment section below. YouTube does still have a comment section for now. Thankfully, it is hidden. But we'd love to see your thoughts on this because we're very much in the middle, I think.
Yeah.
I think there is a part of me that thinks sometimes the heritage does hold them back, but I think at other times it wouldn't be Pleasure Beach without that heritage, without the old rides. But there is certain things that I think you can move on without. Noah's Ark, Steeplechase are the two that come to mind that are, yes, Noah's Ark is a classic, but it is a closed classic.
Yeah.
And it gets in the way of a proper entrance, in my opinion. Steeplechase, I know there's a lot of things in that area that will cause issues, but again, Pleasure Beach, masters of fitting rides into small spaces. I think that they could replace that easily.
I just think at the end of the day we shouldn't be discussing which ride's next until they've filled the space they've got.
Yeah.
I think it's really bonkers to be talking about, oh, well, they should get rid of this because I don't really like it, or that's old, they need to demolish it. What about all the space they've got?
Yeah, there is plenty.
Let's talk about that. Let's be positive. Let's look at what they could fill the park with.
Yeah.
Because there's loads they could do.
Definitely.
So much space.
Definitely. And I think, again, that goes back to the bowlerdrome. Mm-hmm. I mean, I think we've spoke about this with Mike and Mark on camera loads of times. The ideal scenario in my head, and it's full-on roller coaster tycoon dream kind of scenario, you move the catering stuff from where it currently is on that side of the fountain, and I know this ruins your Grand National idea, but you put that where Trauma Towers was. You get the architects in that built Velvet Coaster to do something similar, not Weatherspoons, but of that same style, across the way from the fountain. So you've got indoor, outdoor catering, beer garden on the top, place for somewhere for people to have fags and whatever they want on the top. Middle floor, you've got your food, bar, whatever.
Proper sit-down area.
Yeah, bottom floor, you've got a bit of a takeaway place, toilets, somewhere to take your babies to get them changed. Other side, get rid of the shipping containers, get rid of the bowlerdrome, get rid of Impossible, use all that space as a massive coaster area. Just think of the possibilities in that area.
I don't even think they have to go as far as removing Impossible. I think they've got enough space.
Planet Coaster, get rid of Planet Coaster, Planet Rock, get rid of that as well. I'd say Planet Coaster, for God's sake. See, it's on the mind, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it would make more sense to start at Impossible and go all the way up to Dipper. Well, you know, the walkway to Dipper.
The overpass.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Because that is unused. Impossible is still used. People still, for some reason, love it. It is a classic. I don't see much point in it, but people enjoy it, so I'd say use the other side first.
But here's a thought as well. Imagine using that space for a coaster, because we've got the car park behind that could potentially be used as well. But you imagine like standing on that overpass area looking over a new coaster. I think you'd get so much interest there.
Yeah.
It'd be amazing, that would. But that's probably the dream, and I imagine that Pleasure Beach would have thought about that at some point as well, because I still think the bowlerdrome's days are numbered. I know it's no longer got its bowlerdrome theme in and it got tidied up a little bit, but I think the reason it didn't get a full re-theme is because there is plans for that area. Whether those plans have been wrecked by COVID, Who knows? They might have been put back 5-10 years. Do you know what? At this point, I don't care as long as Pleasure Beach is still here in 10 years. But I think that's it.
Yeah.
I think we've covered it. But like we say, please comment below. Let us know what you think. But for now, that is all from us. And unfortunately, Becca's going back to work. So it's just back to probably me on these lockdown videos now. Although, I think I am now allowed to go and see Mike and Mark after next week.
Yes, as long as you're at a distance, you're all good.
We can do some 2 metre apart videos. I'm just going to have to buy some microphones to stick on us all.
Yeah.
So that we can all be heard. But
no, you won't need one for Mike, he's loud enough.
No, we'll just put one on me and Mark.
Yeah.
Yeah. Although, to be fair, I do try and compete with Mike's noise levels. It's just Mark who's softly spoken compared to me and Mike. But yeah, thanks for watching, and we will see you in the next Pleasure Beach Experience video.